All right. A lot of CMOs have been facing reduced budgets over the past year due to economic headwinds, the recession, and uncertainty in the market, which is a trend that doesn't appear to be ending anytime soon. Now, decisions need to be made about how to allocate a smaller pool of funds and which marketing activities to prioritize. Do we prioritize brand and top of funnel activity or performance marketing and bottom of funnel activities? To help you make these decisions, I'm lucky enough to have Greg Dolan on the show to share his decades of experience as a brand marketer and also as co founder of Keen, a software as a service marketing mix modeling platform that's been around since 2011. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thanks, Jim. Great to be here. Really excited about the conversation. Definitely timely given the market that we're all facing.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of years, getting hit by COVID after sort of 10 years of bull market and everything up and to the right, and then COVID comes in and turns us all around and disrupts our supply chains. And, now we have, interest rates going up and inflation going up. And, what's a marketer to do?
Well, it's really unprecedented. If I think about the last time we went through a recession, it was 2008 in the Great Recession. So most marketers that are running businesses and brands right now haven't experienced this kind of marketplace, this kind of economy, and some of the decisions that they're facing. And what makes things worse is that the marketplace has become increasingly more fragmented. There's more channels, more decisions they need to make. Everything's moving faster. So they're coming at marketers fast, and they have to be equipped with the right data and information and tools to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even think back to, 2008 and how things
Right.
were different, but you think about, what were your digital spends? They were Google and Facebook, maybe.
Right.
That
Yeah.
was maybe a little bit of display thrown in there, but yeah, I mean, things have, like you said, definitely fragmented and gotten a lot faster, which makes the decision making a lot more challenging. So we have to have the right tools. Speaking of, I think you have a tool that you would probably recommend to marketers to
Yeah.
help them make their
Yeah.
decisions. talk,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about Keen. Maybe a brief overview of Keen, what you guys have been up to for the past 12 or so years, and maybe a little bit about the problems you solve, what you do, the kind of companies you work with, those kind of things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So maybe a little bit about my background as well, which led us to starting Keen. So I was actually a brand marketer in my past life. So started my career managing brands at big food companies. So Nabisco Kraft Foods, Campbell Soup Company. So I was managing brands during the last big recession. So I know what it's like to kind of sit in the chair of marketers and have to make these decisions. To your point, they were a lot easier back then. I had to decide between print, TV, and a few digital channels, but it was still hard because what I had at my disposal was traditional, kind of what I call old-fashioned marketing mix. It was, once a year, I'm going to collect a bunch of data. I'm going to have a consultant do a custom analysis, and then I'm going to get a 200-page PowerPoint deck. And we know that just doesn't jive with today's environment, given how fragmented, given how fast the marketplace is moving. So I was lucky enough in 2009, 2010 to meet my technical co-founder, John Busbus, and he had been doing traditional marketing mix analytics consulting for the pharma industry, IMS Health, CS Associates. And he and I both felt like there was an opportunity to disrupt this space. I think we were a little bit ahead of the market, but we felt like software, kind of leveraging data as data was being invested in and collected, could be utilized and brought to bear to drive better decision making and provide ongoing guidance to marketers as they're faced with these decisions and tie them directly to the financial results that they're being held accountable for. So tie it to the balance sheet, not just the P&L, the balance sheet and the P&L as they're making those decisions. So that was was the idea that started Keen. So we started in 2011. We were trying to disrupt not only the delivery mechanism being software, but also the methodology. So we felt like there was an opportunity to bring what we call the full knowledge estate to bear, which includes Bayesian priors and regression approaches. So we built a
And you were
proprietary
and you were doing this back in 2011.
2011.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you, you weren't you weren't joking when you said you were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so luckily we bootstrapped the company, so we bought ourselves some time just to kind of build the platform that we're creating and build the IP behind the platform, which is our marketing elasticity engine. So we actually start and have built a database of marketing elasticities that are across industries, geographies, brands, categories, et cetera, that serve as the starting point for our model. So we bring relevant, timely industry information as a starting point for our models that are fueled by machine learning. So every new data point that comes out of our system fuels that database as a starting point for our models. So we can actually build models with no data from the client at all. So just some financial data with our elasticities, we can get to a directional understanding of past performance and get to an optimized plan. But then we bring in all the other information that the brand has. So previous analytics studies, marketing mix, marketing attribution, lift studies, et cetera. And all of that information could be used to edit our priors. And then we bring in the time series activity data and financials to push and pull those elasticities in the direction of the data signal. So that's where the AI kind of machine learning is built into the application. So the brand can continually learn from the information that's coming into the system.
Nice. And so when you said elasticities, I know I heard you talk about this on a previous podcast too. And my mind initially went to sort of price elasticity, which I don't think is the way that you're using it. Are you talking about it more in terms of, like an ad stock variable, like how long does the effectiveness of an ad last over time, or how fast does it decay? Is that more how you're kind of using that?
It's the effectiveness of each dollar spent in each marketing channel. So essentially, how much more can I spend on a curve, and what is the expected impact of each marketing channel? So
Okay.
we know typically what a GRP of TV for a brand in a certain category will deliver
Mhm.
as a starting point, also given the bets that they've placed in the past and where they've spent their dollars. So basically building response curves based on that
Gotcha.
information that allows us to understand past performance and then also start to optimize looking forward.
Yeah, and that's so nice, having I'm assuming the past, 10 or so years of data kind of working into this and being able to build this model out and, having it across various industries or categories and being able to line that up, which is super helpful. Um, so when clients come to you, are they coming with the typical questions that companies looking for marketing mix modeling are looking for, kind of the general, like, how do I optimize my marketing mix? Where should I put my budget? Or are there other specific things that they're coming to you for?
I mean, that's really the biggest question. So, marketers. So, I have a stat from a study that I read a couple weeks ago where 65% of marketers are being asked to demonstrate value of marketing and start to show a dollar of invested in marketing delivers X in profit and revenue and profit, and only about 35% of marketers can actually give you a marketing ROI, right? So there's an accountability gap in terms of marketing, and that's really what we're trying to solve here. So we
Yeah.
know, as marketers and folks that believe in marketing as a driver of value, we know that marketing drives short-term and long-term value. And that's part of what we've built into our application and prove out. So I know we're going to talk about kind of supporting the full funnel, but one of the unique aspects of our system is that we built in long-term effects into our model as well. So as we're building response curves, we're actually accounting for the timing impact of marketing as well to get to the right balance of how do I support the top of the funnel versus mid funnel, bottom of the funnel based on what financial goals I'm looking to achieve, right? Is it a short-term revenue goal or is it a long-term kind of value goal? Really starting to tie marketing to the balance sheet.
Yeah, and especially that upper funnel, that brand awareness, brand activity is, even with marketing mix modeling, it's very difficult to tie to, dollars and cents revenue. Um, you
Right.
know, obviously marketing mix modeling can kind of do a little bit more longer term than, multi-touch attribution, but yeah, for that really, like, what's the value of this brand ad over the next 5 years, right? Like, how does that accumulate over time? That's definitely a tricky thing to be able to kind of put forth some solid numbers and be confident that, like, yes, this is the value of that. But I want to one thing that you mentioned too is that 35% of marketers can actually give an ROI. but 65% are being asked for it, or is it something? The numbers are,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
wrong, but
That's right. That's about right.
I wonder, do you see that being kind of driven by this, performance marketing that we've been living in, kind of driven by digital, where the idea was that, oh, it's so trackable and we can see exactly how much, people click on this ad and then they buy, and here's how much it was worth. And do you think that's kind of driving this sort of business level need to show value from marketing, and maybe like marketers are being kind of pulled into it because of that?
Well, I think every marketer is being pulled to the bottom of the funnel, and that's the challenge. That's what performance marketing is driving, right? Because if and with cookies going away, it's going to be more obviously more difficult to be able to even demonstrate that, right? So statistical inference and being able to and having approaches like we have, I think, are going to be key, which also allow you to look at things from an omni-channel perspective. So part of the big problem of just focusing on the bottom of the funnel, one is that all your marketing decays really quickly and becomes less efficient and effective over time. As a result, you have to continue to spend more money to get the same amount of revenue, uh, especially when you're kind of ignoring the top of the funnel. So you're not really building any value in your brand, which is really what we're out after at the end of the day anyway. Brands deliver value, deliver shareholder value, and if you're just focused on the bottom of the funnel, you're focused on something that's unsustainable, right, and becomes more expensive over time. But that's really where the account. That's where you've been able to show accountability. To your point, Jim, it's like that's where we have some data to be able to show consumer journey and how things are clicking through. I think it's a false perception of accuracy that we're seeing there, which is why we've taken the approach that we have in looking at full funnel, omni-channel. How do all of these pieces impact each other? What are the portfolio and halo effects? How do they all interact with each other? Because we know that all ships will rise based on supporting the full funnel and will drive more value. We just ran a study with our own data coming out of the system where we ran a bunch of scenarios with a $10 million budget. We looked at top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel balance. So what does it look like? 30-70, 40-60, 50-50. And what we found was that the max ROI and value can be driven when you spend 70% of your dollars at the top of the funnel and 30% at the bottom of the funnel. You can drive a lot more short-term value if you're more 50-50, but you're also going to be driving less value. So we've been able to quantify that and really understand the trade-offs of looking at different objectives, financial objectives, and what you're trying to achieve with the brand.
Oh, that's so interesting. I wonder if you're familiar with the long and the short of it, Les Binet
Yes.
and Peter Feld.
Yeah.
It's similar,
Yeah.
like the numbers are in the same range, right? The 60-40, 70-30 kind of split between brand and performance. And it's interesting to see that you're kind of seeing similar things in your data too, as well. And
Yeah. I had my marketing team send that directly to Les so you can see it.
nice, very
Yeah.
cool. Um, all right, so kind of diving into the main theme for today's episode, the fact that we're all facing, economic headwinds, and a lot of marketing departments, a lot of CMOs are being asked to do more with less. I was looking at Keen's website and looking at some recent blogs that you guys have, and there's just in the past couple of months, there's 3 reasons not to go dark during a recession. There's how to win in a down economy, the importance of maintaining brand equity through a recession. Like those are 3 blog posts just in the past couple of months. And I know there's a whole series on your YouTube channel where you were talking with Cesar Bray of Bain & Company about marketing in a down economy. You guys have been putting out a lot of great content here. So this is something you've been thinking about and writing a lot about lately. So let me pose a fictitious scenario to you and get your take on it. So let's say you're the CEO of a company and you were just told your budget's been reduced by 20% for the year. So for example, let's put some good hard round numbers to it and say you did have 5 million for the year. Now you need to find a way to cut $1 million from your budget. So you need to get it to around $4 million. So how do you decide how to make those cuts?
Well, if you don't have a predictive system like ours, it's like self plug here. You're trying to infer outcomes based on past analysis, right? So I could tell you back in 2008, and things haven't really changed that much. Honestly, there's some optimizers out there, but they're essentially taking past marketing mix or other analytics and they're trying to apply them forward against an outcome. in a pretty crude and really applying a blunt instrument to that, right? So how do I take $1 million? Oh, I was going to take it out of my lowest ROI that I saw in my last marketing mix, and I'm going to take it all out of there. Well, we know that that's probably not the best thing to do, and there's no real way to forecast that because you're not really accounting for the external environment and other external factors that may be impacting your business. So in reality, you could be, and you're likely taking from the top of the funnel as well because you can actually track the bottom of the funnel more effectively, right? So what I always saw was, hey, we're going to put more in digital and then we're going to put more in trade promotion if I'm a CPG brand, as an example, because I know I'm going to get metrics associated with performance in a more direct way. We know from our work over the last 11 years that that's going to do more harm than good in a business.
Right.
Uh,
You're
and,
you're
and
you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot. You might be almost falsely showing short-term gains, or at least not showing any losses immediately, but in the long run, you're really hurting yourself because you're lowering the overall demand or the awareness of your product or affinity towards your brand. That's just going to hurt you month 3 years from then.
we did an analysis. We had a client that actually asked us, what happens if we cut all our marketing? Which I still can't believe that question was asked. And it was a pretty large company that asked this question. So we did an analysis, basically showed an optimization, showed us a simulation with all the marketing dollars out. What happens to the decay of your volume over time when you don't have any marketing? Is kind of refilling that bathtub, right? As it's the decay is actually going through the drain. And what we saw was that it was going to actually cost them 2 times more in their marketing to regain the same amount of volume post being dark. So that's part of the thought piece that we have out there around the cost of being dark. We know it's going to be a lot more expensive to get the volume back versus sustaining and driving continuity through a down economy. It's mathematical that, and we could show the impact of that. So that's a big piece of it. And I always tell the story of I was at Campbell Soup Company. I was running the V8 portfolio. I just launched a new campaign. It was awesome. Like every marketer, the best campaign ever. And the Great Recession happened, and no one wanted to buy $3-4 juice anymore. And what happened there was that marketing was blamed for everything.
Right.
And in reality, it was pricing, it was the economy, it was lower discretionary income. And what we've tried to create with our system is a way to simulate those external factors to understand, based on what you're trying to achieve, where you cut, how deep you cut, and then what you can expect from both a top line and bottom line perspective. So we did that through COVID. We did that through the supply chain and inflation challenges that we've seen. We're seeing it now as marketing spend is being pulled back. What does that all look like? And how do I account for the economic factors, the competitive factors, the pricing that was taken over the last couple of years to compensate for the inflation? How does that all impact the way I think about the business going forward? So it's really reframing from a strict measurement perspective to a optimization, forward-looking planning perspective that can be actualized and updated with new information.
Yeah, no, I love that. I know you said a client asked you to do this, so it wasn't so much a thought exercise, but I like it as a thought exercise too. Is like, what would happen if we literally just cut all marketing today? And you can think about it logically and say, well, does that mean we're going to stop selling everything tomorrow? Like we're going to have zero sales tomorrow? Of course not, right? But eventually, over time, with some measurable decay rate, it's going to slow down. Which always, when I see these articles on LinkedIn or on Twitter where people are the common ones that you've seen in the past, like when eBay cut their entire branded search spend, or when I think it was P&G cut back a lot of their digital spend. We saw no impact from cutting back on all of this spend, and millions of dollars, and we stopped it and nothing happened. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I always wonder, well, tell me how that looks a year from now. Like if it stays the same, that's great. Yeah. But it's always something to think about, is like, yeah, of course it's not going to immediately change, but what does it look like over time?
In market, and I think that's the frustrating thing for me, is the marketers don't have the long-term understanding of what that does, right? So it's, I got to keep my volume where it is in the short term. So I'm going to put everything at the bottom of the funnel. I'm going to spend more dollars there. And we know that decays more quickly. And if you also do that, you're going to lose distribution, or your competitor's going to outspend you. So to your point, it's going to exacerbate and accelerate the declines that you're going to see as well by not supporting the business, particularly at the top of the funnel, and making sure your brand is at the forefront of the consumer's mind as they're making these decisions. So, we've had clients that kind of spent through COVID and spent through the last couple of years. Sometimes they were locked into spend that they had already committed to, so it wasn't necessarily something that they wanted to do, but we were able on the backside of that show them the reason why you guys continue to be in a competitively advantageous situation is that you continued to spend. Your competitor didn't, right? And you're in a much stronger position now as the economy and the category gets better than your competitors are.
Absolutely. So I think we've already talked about maybe one of the common mistakes that people make. So when they're facing these sort of situations where they have to reduce spend, and like we talked about, maybe they reduce upper funnel and put more in the bottom of the funnel, the performance marketing. What are some of the other common mistakes that you see happening in today's environment? What are marketers doing that you think, oh, you shouldn't do that? Are there some big common mistakes that people are making?
I think there's you know there's cutting in general, right? So that's first and foremost. Like you may have to cut based on not having supply, or just economically you're being asked to do less from a revenue and profit perspective, but you don't want to cut too deep. The other piece is uh, probably funneling too much into a given tactic or channel that you think is your only performing channel. In reality, there's diminishing returns and there's response curves. So as you pass the point of diminishing returns, every dollar you spend is going to be less profitable. So continuing to have balance in your mix is really important as well, right? You don't want to be overspending in one channel relative to another. In that cumulative effect, the interaction effects of all the channels are going to have a bigger impact on your overall performance. So that's another one. And along with that, we see a lot of marketers, and this is where we do a lot of work in CPG, where I'm gonna just cut all my marketing dollars and put it in trade and price, right? Just to drive volume, which is the same thing as putting everything at the bottom of the funnel in performance marketing. And that has the same kind of impact, and also shifts a lot of leverage to the retailer versus the brand, right? Because now that those dollars are with the retailer, it's tough to bring them back and redeploy them back to brand building once the economy and the market gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with price. I mean, you're training your customers to expect something, lower price, and then like
Right.
trying to raise the prices is a lot harder. Although
Definitely.
with inflation, it seems like any company can get away with just, increasing their price and being like, "Hey, it's inflation." My wife
Well,
and
they
I
can
joke
do that.
about.
Yeah, they can do that until they have to, when they cycle that pricing action, they got to actually drive volume, right?
Right.
That's the negative. That's where marketing comes in, and
Exactly.
brand building.
Yeah, no, the whole like, price and trade, like that's an area where, admittedly I'm not knowledgeable about, right? I am firmly in sort of the digital marketing, digital analytics space. Is kind of where I've lived at, and I feel like at least in my little circle, my little bubble, that's something that not a lot of us think about is the full marketing picture, right? We're just one of the four P's, the promotion, and we forget about the price and the placement and the product. But those are things that, if we really want to be good at what we do, we have to really consider those as well.
I mean, they have a huge impact on your investment profile, right? So if you're not on the first page on Amazon, and you're advertising to promote that, you're not going to be available to the consumer, or they're not going to be able to find you in distribution. So I think that's key to making sure all those four P's are working together to make sure that your promotion P you're getting the most out of every dollar there. So that's one of the reasons why we call them we were calling them control factors, but they're external environmental factors that we incorporate into our modeling that can also be you could do sensitivity analysis around it. So what if the economy's worse? What if the economy's better? What if competitors are more aggressive or less aggressive? And all of those pieces will impact how you spend and what you can expect from your spend. So it's not just about what we're doing; it's about how we're operating in the external world. That's key to really understanding performance and how we improve performance over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you mentioned, when in 2008 when everything went bad, everyone likes to blame the marketers. But
Yeah.
yeah, at the end of the day, marketing has a pretty, relatively a small impact for a lot of companies. Maybe it's driving an additional 5 or 10% of incremental sales, right?
Yep.
It's all the other things that are much more impactful, right? It's the promotions, the sales that you have going on, your price, your placement, your product, are you on the end cap of the store? What are your
Yep.
competitors doing, right? So yeah, it's definitely good to see the full picture. Um, I want to talk a little bit more about um, about that funnel, right? Top of funnel, mid
Hmm.
funnel, bottom of funnel. Like we mentioned before, a lot of times companies will either just tend to go dark or they'll toss money to the bottom of the funnel. And, I was thinking about this, and, recessions tend to lead to reduced demand. So it doesn't seem like it would make sense to focus on putting more money into demand capture if there's less demand overall. But at the same time, the folks who are keeping a close eye on money may not be comfortable spending it on top of funnel activities that don't show that direct line relationship with revenue. Of course, unless they're using some tools like Keen or some marketing mix modeling that is able to show that. So, what recommendations do you give to clients that are sort of facing these decisions? I know the easy answer is let's put money at performance because we can easily show that that's providing value. But how do you talk to clients about this point?
I think I think if you're not using a system like ours, it's really hard to quantify the long term impact. I think we're pretty unique in the sense of being able to quantify that in our system and understand the trade offs. So any kind of traditional mix is going to probably overemphasize bottom of the funnel and those decisions. I think backing up though, if I'm talking to a senior leader, I want to get really clear on what their objectives are. Like, what are you trying to achieve from a decision hierarchy perspective in this economy? So if I'm my old company, Campbell Soup Company, I got a portfolio of brands, like which brands do I think will win or not? And then I'm doing an optimization, which we could do in our system as well, to say, how much do I invest in brand A versus brand B versus brand C? And then start to drill into lower levels of granularity from there to say, what are my expectations for each one of these brands? What are my revenue, profit expectations? And then how do I build the right mix and plan timing to be able to achieve that? And I think in the absence of that and knowing what decisions are really driving the business, you end up making, poor decisions or the easy decision, or, gravitate to the only piece of data that you can actually, you know, prove out and demonstrate value around.
Yeah,
So it's tough because every marketer thinks that the top of the funnel is the holy grail in terms of, and it's not. We can't understand or quantify it, which again leads to decisions to put all your dollars at the bottom of the funnel, which wastes a lot of dollars. So I think having a good understanding of what you're trying to achieve for the business, what goals you're trying to achieve, what objectives you're putting out there across your portfolio within each brand by channel, I think that's where you can start making better decisions.
yeah, and there's another aspect to this that involves the organizational structure. Right, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of companies are still very siloed, which makes measuring and planning and optimizing and forecasting extremely difficult. So just imagine trying to reduce marketing expenses across 3 or 4 different silos. You have your retail media network team over here, and your shopper marketing here, and your trade merchandising over there, and digital media sits over here, traditional media over there, and trying to do any kind of budget optimization or budget allocation or really optimizing that kind of full mix with a siloed organization seems impossible, right? So how do you are you still seeing this within companies where there's a siloed, more siloed nature than not, or are you seeing uh, the opposite?
Unfortunately, this is the majority of organizations are still very siloed, and the budget's split up across different parts of the organization. I was doing a video podcast with the head of marketing at Profitero e-commerce platform, and they're seeing it as well. A lot of times you'll see these, centers of excellence pop-ups. You'll have an e-com center of excellence, an analytics center of excellence, and you'll have different groups that are focused on different silos in the marketing mix. And when you do that, you don't have a full holistic view, omni-channel view on how to allocate your dollars. And when you don't do that, you're leveraging different data sets. You have different decision makers. So there's really no way to make sure that you're driving the most efficiency that you can across an entire business. So where we see kind of best practices, and I think this is an opportunity in this very difficult market, is for marketers and organizations to start rethinking, how they run their business, what their go-to-market is, how they think holistically across their business, which will then unlock dollars that they could free up and drive more efficiency with the dollars that they are deploying. But it's very difficult when you have a revenue management group that's focused on kind of merchandising and pricing, and you have a media group that's focused on retail media, and maybe there's another group that's focused on shopper marketing, and none of them are really kind of working cohesively and collaboratively together to get to the best outcome for the business.
Yeah. Is the solution just sort of change management? It's like it needs to come from the top down, from the CEO, and say, this is how we need to change, and go through the hard the hard challenges of reorganization and going through the change management. Or have you seen companies successfully de-silo their organizations?
It is change management, and it does have to come down, from the top. So, strategy drives structure, and ultimately the staffing associated with that. And we just had a couple client organizations that started putting the pieces together in a growth organization. This is a trend that we're seeing where ecom was separate. You had brick and mortar, traditional media. They're pulling everything together under a chief growth officer that kind of looks across the entire business and has responsibility for driving performance. And I think once you get to that, you can start looking and making decisions more holistically with a viewpoint that you have across the entire business.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that organizations that don't evolve, I mean, maybe this is a broad statement, but do you think they're doomed for failure? Or it seems like the ones that do evolve and are able to act more quickly and more decisively based on actual data and seeing what's happening, versus those that are siloed, it seems like it's a clear winner scenario.
I I couldn't agree more. I see a world that we hear a lot about AI now, and it's everywhere, and I see more and more automation happening in decision making. So how do you set yourself up with the right organization that can leverage the right data and technology to be able to move faster and more effectively? And the folks that are making the changes now in their organizations and getting their data organized, not necessarily boiling the ocean, but organizing the right data to feed into a MarTech stack that can help them make decisions faster and more accurately, that can then be repeatable through software and technology. I think that's where we're headed. So the organizations that are planning for that now are the ones that are going to win, and ultimately have the leverage to be able to compete more effectively.
Absolutely. Greg, you've dropped so many awesome pieces of knowledge on us here today. Where can people learn more from you, about Keen? Where can they reach out to you if they have questions?
So they can go to our website, which is keends.com. And we have a YouTube channel, have tons of content, as you mentioned. We'd love to have a conversation with folks that are interested in learning more about our platform and how we could drive value. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is just drive a connection between the decisions you're making every day and your marketing plan and your investments to growth, and show you a path to continuously improve. So we'd love to have a conversation, and appreciate the conversation with you, Jim. It's been awesome, and looking forward to continuing it, uh, post conversation here.
Absolutely. And yeah, we would love to have you back on the show sometime. But until then, everyone out there, keep on analyzing your marketing data and making smart decisions. And don't go dark, and don't put it all at the bottom of the funnel. You heard it here first.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Jim.